Ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, Transformers fans everywhere, welcome back. LPS Last Prime Speculator, here to bring you another episode of the Redemption series as always. Today's focus on the Redemption series is Megatron. Who better than Megatron to have its own story of redemption spoken about? The Redemption series is a series focused on Transformers, artifacts, plots, events that were never explained in the live-action universe. Who better than Megatron to have his story explained, right? So this is the live-action universe origins of Megatron. Let's get right to it. So, in Transformers 1, Megatron was on a mission to retrieve the Allspark. Which, the Allspark, if you're not familiar, you should check out my last video, the Bumblebee Origins, is a Cybertronian technology artifact that can basically restore technology and restore Transformers to make an army, rebuild something, all that nature. The Allspark at this time in Transformers 1 was the life form and the ultimate artifact for the Transformers race. In 1897, Megatron crash-landed in the Arctic Circle in response to trying to find the Cube, trying to find the Allspark for his purposes after the War of Cybertron. This is where basically the whole thing was never supposed to happen. Humans ended up discovering Megatron. Archild Witwicky was on an expedition to find the Arctic Circle to bring back the knowledge to where he came from. And on his quest, he ended up finding and intertwining with Cybertronian race and humans. This is where we actually have met the Transformers race. When he was on his mission, he actually fell through the ice and discovered what he could refer to as an Iceman, which we know is Megatron. He actually activated the navigation system and location of Megatron and placed the location of the Cube's coordinates in Archild Witwicky's glasses, right? And with this would be able for his fellow Decepticons hopefully to send a calling out to him that he's somewhere in the galaxy along with the locations that of the Allsparks on Archild Witwicky's glasses. He would, it almost is like a way of planning an event to happen in the future. Now, once the locations were placed in the glasses, this is where the intertwine happened. But in 1930, Sector 7 discovered Megatron. They also discovered the Cube and basically called it a Black Ops operation. Archild Witwicky ended up going insane and calling about the Iceman, which they would basically label him as crazy, but he actually did find Megatron. So Sector 7 took this technology, took this artifact, and took Megatron, which they named MBE-01. They built this dam as a secret bunker to hide it, so no alien or Transformer would be able to locate the whereabouts of Megatron and the Allspark. Now, we learned that from the Autobots when Optimus explained why they must find these glasses, because Megatron's whole goal was to use our technology to build an army to basically take over our planet and maybe restore Cybertron down the road in Transformers 1, right? Now, with, long story short, the Decepticons ended up hacking our technology, our system, and finding the whereabouts of Megatron, right? And the Cube. Megatron was basically being held captive. The humans ended up finding out that Transformers cannot operate while basically in cold temperature climate settings. So we used the knowledge we gained from the Arctic Circle to basically keep Megatron stored where he cannot operate. But just like he did with Archild, the mind and soul of Megatron is always there. And he's just sitting there waiting for the opportunity and for the humans' sins in a way to be able to restore himself. Basically, he's a sleeping giant awakening. Once he does awake, he ends up destroying Sector 7, right? He ends up coming out and saying, "I am Megatron," and then we see the witness and born of Megatron being born in a live-action universe. He destroys everything only to find out that the Allspark is gone. But the humans, led by Lennox's team, escaped with the artifact in Mission City. So he sent his whole Decepticons to basically find this Allspark and retrieve it so he could do his natural dominance. We find out that Megatron not only is the leader of the Decepticons in this, but he's extremely powerful and no remorse. So the humans and the Autobots form an alliance to basically stop him at all costs. Optimus Prime was willing to sacrifice himself in this to make sure that the humans did not suffer from their mistakes in Cybertron. This is not their fault that Megatron is here to destroy them, right? So he was willing to sacrifice himself. Long story short, he told Sam if he had possession of the Cube, no matter what, put it in his chest. That way they will not die. That is not what actually happened. We all know that after we see Megatron, this is probably the only really movie we saw Megatron really be ruthless, be dominant, right? Be the Megatron that we know. He ended up being the spark was placed in his chest by Sam, and he was basically sentenced to his death, what we thought. And once he was actually dead, the whole Allspark was placed into his chest, only to have Megatron fall to defeat and actually upcome his death. Optimus Prime would actually say, "You left me no choice, brother." We find out at the very end that Megatron is placed in the depths of the ocean in the deepest part of our planet and would be operated by United States military control 24/7, only to never find his location ever again. So, let's move on to Transformers 2, Revenge of the Fallen. We know that the body is Megatron is placed in the deepest part of the ocean on Earth that is being operated by the military, right? They find out his location, they send the Decepticon team down there to rescue their leader, Megatron, right? They end up using the sliver of the cube and place it in the spark of Megatron and restore himself. They actually sacrifice one of their fellow Decepticons, and now Megatron is now has a new body form. It was a tank. So once he's restored, he flies out and destroys the ship, and then flies out into space and goes somewhere in the galaxy and goes on the ship known as the Nemesis. This is where we, the audience, learn about the Fallen, his master, the original Decepticon. What was also something that we found out, and this was Megatron's knowledge that he was brought to by his leader, the Fallen, is that he lets the Fallen know that the Allspark's done, they have no chance, and the Fallen educates him that basically with, like a transformer, artifacts can also transform. And that's when we learn of the matrix of leadership. We also learn that Megatron is not the head boss of the Decepticon race. We learn that the Fallen is also a prime in the original Decepticon. So Megatron is actually the apprentice of this Dark Lord known as the Fallen. The Fallen basically lets Megatron know that the only way to save his race and save them is to find the matrix of leadership. The matrix of leadership would provide the Sun Harvest power. And the Sun Harvest power is basically they would use the Sun Harvest that the Primes would use when they would travel the galaxies and use Energon, or the Sun's energy, to restore for Energon. The Primes had one rule: never take a planet with life. The Fallen did not agree. Now, with this Sun Harvest that was we found out was in Egypt, that would restore the Energon from our sun, destroying us, and being able to save them. But he needed the matrix of leadership, which was basically by the 7 primes had a tomb that they sacrificed themselves and their body to protect. Now he needed the location from, again, Sam Witwicky's brain. So we go from Transformers 1 from the glasses now to actual brain of Sam Witwicky. That would actually provide the location of where the Sun Harvest and the Matrix of Leadership are located. But there was one hint. Only a prime could defeat the Fallen. So, Megatron, Starscream, Grindar find out. We see the epic forest fight, which still to this day is probably my favorite fight. He lets the Fallen know. The Fallen actually comes back, finds a location. Sam actually finds the location of the Matrix. And once they find out the location, the Fallen flies down and, long story short, takes possession back from the Matrix after Sam located it, right? And uses this to now restore his Sun Harvest, which is the Energon that they used for the suns to restore the planet and restore their life. The Matrix of Leadership was then also passed to Sam, who then restored it with Optimus. And then we learn about the origins of the Primes. We meet the Fallen's brothers, right? The ancestors at the time, what we thought was the Transformers. And that the Matrix of Leadership is not given, it's earned. It's earned. And once Sam proved his worthiness and Optimus, the last Decepticon of the Primes, it actually used the artifact to restore the spark of Optimus Prime, giving him that jetpack mode, which was so epic. Oh my god, when I saw the new body design, it was beautiful. Goes up, flies up against the Fallen, who is now restoring the planet, and slowly the Sun Harvest is activating. And then we see Optimus do what he does and witness his greatness as the 13th prophesized warrior king, the last Prime, and defeats the Fallen, only to basically have Megatron escape after Prime absolutely owned him. And Megatron says it's not over. Now let's move over to Transformers 3 Dark of the Moon. We see Megatron. We see Megatron beat up, destroyed. It's pretty sad in a way. Megatron is not the ruthless dictator. The soul is still there at Megatron, but he is still beat from Optimus from the battle with him that he fought with the Fallen in Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, right? Now, this is where everything was all about the Ark. Now, the whole goal that Megatron actually wanted, that the Autobots ended up doing, was to retrieve Sentinel Prime. which was Optimus Prime's master during the War of Cybertron, right? In this War of Cybertron, the Ark actually escaped the battle, which what they thought was actually located and destroyed, and Sentinel Prime was basically spread out through the galaxies, right? He ended up crash landing on the moon, only to find out that Megatron's whole goal was to actually retrieve Sentinel. He needed Optimus Prime's matrix to restore Sentinel Prime, which we come to find out that Sentinel, during the War of Cybertron, actually made a pact with Megatron basically to end the war and to basically restore order. But Sentinel would not work for him. That was just the key, though. The Autobots and Decepticons had a secret alliance between Sentinel and Megatron. So once Sentinel was retrieved by Optimus, Megatron ends up witnessing what he called his greatest creation or greatest triumph was Sentinel Prime. Sentinel Prime betrayed the Autobots and ended up taking over and working with Megatron. But instead of Cybertron, they were going to use what we came to know as the Battle of Chicago. Now, Sentinel would use these pillars all over the world, and he was the only one that could physically operate and literally bring back Cybertron to our Earth. So Sentinel had agreed with Megatron to use the humans as slaves to basically do what they did during the Quintessa era, that we would restore their planet with all of our, with basically a billion types of slaveries around our Earth to restore their planet, where they were Sentinel and Megatron both reference and wanted the same thing, Cybertron, and be referenced as gods, right? But here's the thing with Megatron. Megatron in this movie was also not the main villain. He was working again under somebody, like the Fallen. He was working for Sentinel. So we all know what happens. The Battle of Chicago actually takes place. Everything gets destroyed, and actually Carly convinces Megatron, "You're working for Sentinel. You do know that, right? You are not in charge." And at the very end, when we see Optimus battling Sentinel Prime, Sentinel is literally about to behead Optimus, only to have Megatron come as actually the hero, if you really think about it, and save Optimus Prime and blast Sentinel. And he responds, "All I ever wanted was to be in charge." He wanted his home restored, and he just wanted to be in charge. He basically, it's almost seemed like, would take orders if he was just knowing that he was in charge, right? Optimus, being ruthless in this, takes up the head of Megatron and ends it, and saving the planet for Earth. And then the Battle of Chicago happens, and the ending result is Megatron is once again destroyed by Optimus, dead, right? Now, let's fast forward to Transformers Age of Extinction. In Transformers Age of Extinction, we learn about the origins of the Knights, okay? Now, we also learn that, in my opinion, this was a soft reboot, but KSI was basically using the Battle of Chicago, stealing the Cybertronian technology of battle parts, ships, and everything, and the humans were secretly building their own Transformers race. We found out Cemetery Wind did not provide the knowledge back to the US government, as well as Stanley Tucci's character, that they were killing Autobots as well. He thought they were just killing Decepticons. So, Cemetery Wind makes the negotiations of a lockdown for the seed, right? And KSI needs the seed to restore and create technology, which is known as Transformium, which is the human touch of a transformer organism. Basically, Joshua Joyce ended up finding the mathematics, the science of the connection for the Transformers technology. But there was one thing that he was getting his knowledge from, and that was actually the brain of Megatron. Just like Transformers 1 and Age of Extinction, Megatron's soul is still there, and Megatron actually infected the whole internet system to provide to the humans in hopes that they would use their greed to restore a Transformers army for himself, right? Which is exactly what happened. He became Galvatron. Now that was the KSI technology of Megatron. Megatron's whole goal was to use the sins and selfishness of the humans to restore his body and provide a new army. Now he also, once Galvatron is born, we see the battle with him and Optimus actually refers to him as "you have no soul," which is mean I have no fear. Optimus then reports to Cade and lets him know, "You humans have no idea what you've done. The soul of Megatron is in Galvatron. He is controlling your whole system," which is exactly what happened. Flash forward to the Battle of Hong Kong. They sent all their Transformers to the KSI facility in China, only to have Galvatron wake up and take over the actual technology the humans created for his army. Now, his whole goal at this time was to get the seed to basically, again, restore the Transformers technology, have it blast off. They had the capability of tactical nuke to create an army. Now we also get Frank Welker as Galvatron, which was awesome, by the way, right? Now, once we see the Battle of Chicago, the Autobots come back, and Megatron is now in total control of the KSI technology, and the whole goal was to get the seed back. We all know what happens. Prime and the Autobots and the Dinobots actually end up saving Hong Kong, right? And Optimus ends up retrieving in space with the seed, right? But Galvatron does let Optimus know at the end of the movie that I am reborn. Now, Transformers the last night. We finally get to see Megatron's new body. How did he get this new upgraded body? I'm going to save for another video, but we see an actual ruthless looking Megatron. We see the horns, we see the body, we see the barbarian look. Like I said, I thought at this time it was probably going to be some sort of type of Beast Wars. But the horns, he looked so on point. This was the Megatron we hoped, which we wanted. I absolutely loved this body. I was so intrigued to see the new Megatron, right? Now, he sends forth Barricade to locate Cade Yeager to find, at this time, what we know as the Talisman. Okay, the Talisman, which we come to find out is an artifact which shows the sign of the apocalypse. The Talisman is what he needed to find out some sort of artifact to find the whereabouts of what we know is Unicron, right? That the whole goal was to use Unicron's core, which is Earth, to restore his home planet, Cybertron. We find out that the Talisman, it plays an important role, and that's why Megatron needed it to find the location of pretty much the generator to restore his own planet, right? Now, in the movie, Megatron kidnaps a couple of CIA agents, and he wanted to negotiate with the human part. And he wanted to negotiate, I'll give you these CIA agents, but I want some of my guys back. So we see the new Decepticon army come out. They end up getting destroyed, right? But he ends up basically finding out what he wanted to find, and that was Cade Yeager's whereabouts of how to get his whole goal of restoring Cybertron back, which is located in England, right? We also get to witness Lennox. Lennox learned out the same thing. He was actually handling the negotiations with Megatron and the lawyers, and he also provided the knowledge that basically they would use Megatron and they would free the Decepticons to find out what Cade Yeager was looking for. So again, the humans and the Transformers are working together. Lennox is working with the military. TRF is working for their own purposes to wipe out all the Transformers that are now declared unlegal. We learned that Megatron is now working for Quintessa, and he also has this red paint. Now we end up finding out that Optimus becomes Nemesis Prime also from this infection and brainwashing away. I'll save that in another video. I want to do a red paint origins, but this is where we find out that basically Quintessa had some influence on Megatron possibly. Now, once Megatron realizes that Nemesis Prime is no longer under Quintessa's control and Optimus is the leader is back, he ends up basically taking the staff after the staff was located by Cade Yeager and Vivian that Optimus ended up stealing, right? We see the ship rising, we see B flying on it, and that was actually the whole night ship or ignition ship to have the core of Unicron from Earth restored through Quintessa Step, which is exactly what happens, which we find out is Stone Age, right? So once Quintessa is now fully operative and has a staff in the possession, we start witnessing the transformation of the core being transported to Cybertron, right? And once we find out that Megatron is now working for Quintessa, Infernicus and the whole Decepticon army is now at all costs is going to defend Quintessa to have their home restored, their planet restored. That was the whole goal, just like for Transformers 1, Transformers 5, Megatron's whole goal was to restore Cybertron, and this is exactly what would happen. We find out that now that Nemesis Prime is no longer under control, that the only way to defeat this is to literally kill Quintessa, which the Autobots have to protect Vivian to retrieve the staff because of the DNA of Merlin. So Megatron leads the army of the Final Defense to protect Quintessa. Now what happens is the Autobots end up taking over and leading towards the charge of victory. But right before the victory happened, where Optimus and Bumblebee destroyed Quintessa, Megatron revealed to Optimus, we were brothers once. So we go from Transformers 1 to Transformers 5, the brother connection, right? We all come to find out Optimus is not being brainwashed. I think Megatron tried doing a little bit of hint of trickery It didn't work. Optimus Prime ended up kicking out Megatron, which he ended up flying out of the ignition chamber, only to have his body again deserted in some depths of part of Earth, where Megatron now is actually, the body is now possibly on some part of Unicron, right? Actually, it is on Unicron, because Unicron is actually Earth, only to have Megatron's new form ready to be awakened by the Dark Lord known as Unicron. I hope you guys enjoyed that video, the live-action universe origins of Megatron. Who better than needing the redemption than Megatron himself, the leader of the Decepticons, one of the most popular Transformers of all time. I got a couple of shout-outs to give. These are the people that did the hashtag redemption, either on my Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube. I'm going to give a shout-out to Dr. Life 7829, Tane281, Awesome OG, Dread Nation, and Matt Gamer. They did the hashtag redemption. Thank you so much for doing it. You guys, I promised you guys a shout out. There's your shout out. Thank you for doing the hashtag redemption. And the next one, we're going to put hashtag notification squad. But guys, again, make sure to turn on your notifications, stay up to date with all the redemption series that I've got coming. I got a ton more Transformers, redemption series, stories, plots, events coming your way. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to this channel. Please subscribe, join the community. Follow me on Twitter at Prime Speculator. Follow me on Instagram at Last Prime Speculator. And guys, please join the community. If you're a fan of Transformers, we dig deep in the lore of Transformers. To my subscribers, guys, I love you so much. Thank you for the constant support. Follow me on Twitter and all that stuff. Sending me your speculation, it means the world to me. Again, I always tell you, I'm just the face of the franchise. This is your guys' community. Thank you so much. Now, this is LPS delivering you another redemption series. Stay tuned for the next redemption series. Peace.